The following message is part of a plea bargain agreement with the advocacy to avoid criminal charges. As part of the pirate community, when we're out in space and we're having fun, it's important to remember that our actions have impacts upon others. So try to have a positive impact from time to time. Hey buddy, you hungry? Why don't you have that? It's very nutritious. There's protein in that. Try to do something nice for someone from time to time. Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and of course this is the Piracy Show. Now, on today's show, I was kind of experimenting with a few things, and one of the things that I actually had experimented with the day before is I had clicked the button on the character reset to basically see how it all worked out. And here I am the next day and doing my first mission for Rudo. You know, the one where you have to scavenge the corpse out of the, busted down lab on either Yella, or I think there's one on Daymar, I know for sure. And then there's another one on Chelin or Selin. And that is basically how you unlock the smuggling missions. But it got me thinking about smuggling. This, along with the upcoming Mercury Star Runner, scheduled, has not begun work yet, but scheduled, underline, bold that word, italicize, whatever, scheduled for 4.1. Now, smuggling is an interesting career in Star Citizen because some of the pieces, not a lot of the pieces, but some of the pieces are already there. We already technically have a very basic form of smuggling in the game. Now, for those of you who don't know or do not stray onto the other side of the tracks, basically once you complete this mission, you gain access to missions through the mission drop box in Grim Hex, or the mission drop boxes now in Grim Hex. If you haven't noticed, Grim Hex has gone through a few changes. Maybe we'll discuss that in the future, but the important thing is that when you get these missions, the goods that you're bringing to the locations aren't exactly entirely legal. In fact, they are probably illegal. And there are people out there who have reasons to stop you from delivering these goods. Now, you're going to suffer a lot of the same interdictions that ordinary players would. You'll be interdicted by pirates. You'll be interdicted by the advocacy. But whereas with a regular player, if the advocacy interdicts you, you drop your speed to 0. You get scanned. They go, okay, go back to your business, move along on your way. These aren't the droids we're looking for. And then you just carry on. Whereas if you have the illegal goods on your ship, you can get dinged for that. Now, moving into the future with a dedicated smuggling ship, including the ability to hopefully hide certain cargo within parts of your ship so that it doesn't get detected, that opens up the door to kind of dial smuggling up a little bit and make smuggling a little bit more fun and a little bit more interesting. Now, the current system for smuggling involves going down to a mission box. You go, you accept the mission through your Moby Glass, and then you pick up the package of, not so legal goods. And that is fine for the current implementation, but in the future, I think that we should kind of break these things apart. Now, the existing missions and the way they are should continue to function as they are. For people who don't have ships that have dedicated cargo areas, people who can't preload cargo onto their ship or things like that, like if you go to ArcCorp Mining or whatever and you buy a certain amount of titanium, it automatically just kind of appears on your ship. What I think that should happen is that the current system is fine for people who don't have dedicated cargo spaces, but in the future, for ships that do have dedicated cargo spaces that you can load right into, then I think that you should be able to select with that mission, a button that simply says, load the cargo onto my ship. And that should allow you, if you have dedicated cargo space, to take on much more ambitious cargo missions. So we get away from the little tiny shoebox crates and we move up to much more ambitious cargoes with much more ambitious rewards and far greater danger in delivering those goods to the destination. So, reward commensurate with the difficulty, or difficulty commensurate with the reward, however you want to look at it. I think that, we should still be able to do these little missions with whatever ship that we can find a space to fit these little cargo crates on, but in the future, with dedicated cargo ships and dedicated smuggling ships, we should kind of amp up this system and allow people to carry much more cargo with with greater rewards, but also greater risk. Make smuggling worthwhile and a very interesting pursuit. Having a system like that in place, I think, sets you up for a ship like the Star Runner that has its dedicated smuggling areas within the ship. So if you have that button, you can also have a button right next to it that says load this into the secret cargo area, the 5 or 6 SCUs that we have that no one else can find. That sort of thing is a good idea, and having that system in place allows you to do that. And so it allows you, like if you're just running regular cargo, you shouldn't really notice a difference, but if you're running illegal cargo, it opens up the door and leaves, that possibility, that opening there for added flavor when you have a certain ship like the Star Runner that has that additional secret cargo space. Now, you've got your cargo, it's loaded up on your ship, you're good to go. You now have to bring that cargo to its destination, and here's where I think that we can actually add a cooler mechanic than currently exists. You go out, advocacy stops you, they scan you, right? I think that baseline, whether or not when the advocacy stops you and scans your ship, if you decide to stop, there should be a 50-50 chance that you're going to get, your cargo is going to get detected. Baseline 50-50. However, if you have a ship like the Star Runner that has its little hidey holes that you can keep a certain amount of cargo in, then maybe that modifies the chance a little bit. Maybe it makes it's about a 25% chance that they're going to catch you and a 75% chance that they won't. But you can take that a little bit further. Maybe in Rudo's shop, there's a few little pieces that you can get for your ship. Things that modify the way the shields are, the shield frequencies or the engine output or things like that. Things that might add up to, some detrimental effects to your ship over time. But that might even skew the odds even more in your favor that you won't be detected. One of the things about smuggling is you want to maintain access through legal space. That's why you have to smuggle, right? You don't want to get caught. And if you're running around with crime stat, then that doesn't really bode well for your business. So you're going to have to let the advocacy stop you and scan you and then roll the dice, but you can skew the odds in your favor depending on your skill as a pilot and different things that you can manipulate and some setup work that you do beforehand, so that when you do get interdicted, if you do happen to get interdicted by the advocacy, then you can show your skill and at the same time roll the dice, because you don't want to get it to a point where a player can sit there and say 100% I'm never going to get found out, because to me that's kind of boring. If you do that, that is kind of a boring outcome. You want it to be somewhat thrilling. You want it to you want to be able to take chances. You want to be able to feel the thrill of the moment. If it's a guaranteed career with guaranteed rewards and no risk ever, it's boring. So there should be a chance, but I feel that there should be certain ways that players can manipulate the odds in their favor so that they can, they have a reasonable chance, a very reasonable chance of, getting away with it scot-free. But occasionally you may run into the one hyper, focused advocacy officer who's just on top of their game, and you might have to, get the hell out of Dodge. Now, as for the actual delivery, now currently with smuggling, when you go to, we're going to Orinth in this example, when you're going to these locations, they don't have quantum or like a quantum beacon that you can warp to. You want to go to AuroCorp, you want to go to Shubin on whichever planet or moon, you just quantum right there, and you end up, what is it, like 50 kilometers away from it. Whereas with these locations, because they're not publicly advertised, and for good reason, you actually have to travel to them. Now, I think that when we come to this stage of the game, I think that we can add some interesting things in the future. Now, with the current system, when you're carrying 1 or 2 crates, no one's really probably going to notice that. And so the chances of you running into complications on this stage of the journey are probably fairly low. But as we move into a much more ambitious system, you've got a much larger cargo, loose lips sink ships. And there's probably a few people who know that cargo has now left Grim Hex or wherever and is now headed over to this location. They may look at it as an opportunity to get something on something of a discount. And they may be there waiting for you, looking for you when you get there. Now, does that mean that it automatically should be a confrontation that involves armed conflict? Possibly. I don't think that it should be guaranteed. I think there should be ways to evade it if you should choose to do so. Now, if you have a decent enough ship, your turrets are manned, your crew is armed and ready to go, and you want to just fight your way through it, if it does happen to be there, then by all means, go right ahead. But if you're trying to evade that conflict, if you're just looking to deliver your goods and skip out of there, perhaps if you were to lower your ship in altitude, let's say, what was it? I started this about 150 kilometers away from my destination. What if I went down to almost ground level at that 150 kilometers away and did the last 150 kilometers closer to the planet? Yes, my ship would be traveling much more slowly, but for someone way up there looking for me on approach, they may think that I'm coming in the fast way. So enemies may be up there high in altitude, scanning around and looking for this ship. And then it becomes something of a cat and mouse game where you're trying to keep the signature, keeping your sig low on your ship, dialing down your power settings, and just kind of trying to slip by without being noticed. I think that could make the gameplay really interesting, especially if you're trying to evade the conflict. It's another way to kind of outsmart the battle rather than fight the battle. I still think that within reason, that there should be the potential for danger to arise, but there should also be the potential for the player's skill to mitigate or eliminate those dangers. I really think that, in this case, brains should pay off much more than brawn. It should be the smart smuggler, the person who's going to sneak by and not be noticed, rather than the person who's just going to brashly go in and fight a head-to-head battle with these guys. So I think that, if you could add in some kind of functionality like that, depending on the amount of cargo that you're carrying, once again, if you're carrying a much larger load, then there should be a chance that someone's going to be there waiting for you. And then just opening up the fact that maybe they can only detect ships within a certain range or above a certain threshold of, energy ratings or whatnot, something that the players would know fairly well ahead of the time. And so that players can take certain, measures to evade that. Like, let's say a caterpillar has an energy signature of 100. And they're up there, and you need only to have this energy signature of 80 for them to detect you. But if you're, say, more than 15 kilometers away and you lower your sig to 90, then that's enough. You have these two things like distance and signal strength that can kind of help you evade those sensors. And so you wouldn't know exactly what their sensor strength is, but you could make a reasonable guess. And then you could kind of either play it really safe and really careful, or you can play it a little more risky and try to get in there quicker. But I think adding that type of gameplay into the actual delivery, adding things like this could make smuggling so much fun and so much more interesting than it is currently. Now, admittedly, some of the stuff that I've talked about would probably, especially the component and ship stuff, that would probably take a fair amount of work that would distract away from other objectives. And I'm sure that, people's plates are full. But some of it, I think, might be reasonably attainable. Some of it, might be, just slight modifications to the things that we already have. I think would make it a much more rewarding and a much more interesting career, And I think that, yeah, we do have basic smuggling, but I think we could just do a little bit to just these little things could just really ramp it up and actually make it a system that kind of showcases what Star Citizen hopes to do, or what Star Citizen can do. And I think there's a lot of room for that for a reasonable price with smuggling in the Star Citizen universe. So hopefully by the time we get the Mercury Star Runner, we'll see some of this stuff. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.